this is me, Pepita, and this is Behind the Mirror with Peta. And so this is my new podcast, and so I'll give you a little background story on who I am and what this podcast is going to be about, and then we'll get jump right on into this this episode. So I'm Pepita. I'm a hairstylist in St. Louis, Missouri, at Forte Spa, and you hear a lot about Pepitas at Forte Spa because this is also sponsored by Pepitas at Forte Spa, which is my own self. And if you like any more information about that, you can find more information at pepitagonzalez.com. And Behind the Mirror with Peta is basically about my salon stories and being in the salon world, and like stories of like basically how I can connect current events of what's going on in the world with what it's like being a hairstylist, or the stories I hear, what I talk about in the salon, and things of that nature. So you'll get to know me in various different ways with like the things they talk about in the salon and that salon culture that's just not put out here like that. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get to love me through my stories, or just the different things I talk about. And yes, sometimes I might become a little candid, or you know, you'll definitely get to find out who I am behind these stories. And um, I'm gonna go ahead and shout out the person who helped me with this idea. I want to give a shout out to Ashley. Um, I was actually telling her a story, and she was like, "This would be awesome as a podcast." And I was like, "Girl, you right. You are so right." And now here we are with Behind the Mirror with Peta. So with this first episode, I just want to go ahead and jump right in head first and just go ahead and start with a tough one. Just because I know this week I was going to be talking about it, and I've actually already been talking about it this week because it's Thursday, and I've already discussed it a few times with a few different people, and I know I will be continuing to discuss it probably for the rest of the week. If not, I know it will be in discussion probably for the next week and a half for sure, without a doubt. So I wanted to talk about When They See Us on Netflix. Oh my goodness. And when I want to talk about that and racial bias. And the reason I saw the connection between that and racial bias, I thought it'd be a great way. I thought those topics would be great because, like, when I first not got behind the mirror of working as a hairstylist, but when I first became a booth renting stylist, the first salon I worked at was in the Shaw neighborhood in St. Louis. And shout out to the Shaw neighborhood, because that neighborhood, it shaped me as who I was as an independent stylist, and how I knew I was going to be. And the reason I wanted to shout out that neighborhood is because they are just so woke out there. They were very woke. Very that community was very about diversity, you know, justice, and just being there for everybody. And so I've got to learn a lot of people. Well, that was my first original, like, outside of that was my first clientele base I grew, just for my true self, working behind the chair I was renting. So that was pretty cool, and it shaped me as to who helped me be the stylist I knew I wanted to be, and I've always wanted to be a diverse stylist. And with that, I knew I was going to have sometimes tough conversations with different people, because with that diversity, I like to keep it open minded. So I'm a very open minded person. So I I knew that sometimes I'm gonna have uncomfortable conversations, but I need to be able to hear people out, and vice versa. And so I was glad throughout these years I've learned when to be quiet, uh, when to go ahead and say something. Because sometimes you do have to say some of the uncomfortable things, and I think that's why some of my clients love me. So, and but when I'm saying these things, I try to come from a point of view of care. It's always love. It's always love. So, because I'm not going to say anything just to be hateful. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and talk about these two things, and also and how it relate, and how I have like a couple of salon stories that go coincide. So, with when they see us, I I actually didn't watch it all at home. We have a TV here at the salon, and I watched part of it here. And I watched part of it here with one of my close clients, and she's definitely some. I'm not the people I talk about. I'm not even gonna, like, when I tell these stories. I'm not gonna be saying names. The only person who got a shout out was the person who gave me this idea to do this. So, but everyone else, um, if you know who you are, you want to shout yourself out in these comments, you're free to do so. But you will be nameless. If you know if the story is yours, you can say, "Oh, it's my story." Or if you don't want to, that's cool. I just want to give my clients that kind of stick to that confidentiality. So I finished it with one of my favorite clients, and I think we watched 2 episodes while I was coloring her hair, and during that, I was glad I watched it with somebody like her, who I knew she was gonna be okay if I cried. Like, she was somebody I didn't mind crying with, because me and her, we've had some some great conversations. So I knew that it. I knew I was in a safe place with her, and vice versa. So, and plus she had already seen it before, so and those last 2 episodes were really tough for me anyway. And there might be a couple of spoilers, but not too much. But so with the first two, I watched them, and I think I cried in about every episode, and each episode hit me differently. So the first one, it made me understand how so many people can get coerced into signing a confession that's that may be untrue, and how easy it may happen. And when those boys, when they ended up finally getting together, and they admitted to telling lies on each other, it was just that was like, well, dang, that's deep. And then it was also like one of the guys asked Raymond if he could speak Spanish, because he was Hispanic, and his character I felt kind of connected to me, because it's like me, I'm mixed Mexican, Native American, and Black, and my whole name's in Spanish, and I can't speak Spanish. And so for him, I love that they showed his character, even though it wasn't like a keynote, it was just something small. I like they showed that representation, that not all Hispanics speak Spanish. You know, like we're just as American as the next. And that was, I love that that right there was one of the things that I loved that they showed, because he was like, "Well, do you speak Spanish?" And he was like, "I can say tacos." And I'm like, I've basically used that same joke. I don't know how many times in my life. Usually I can say burrito and margarita. That's usually my go-to. And but for all those boys of color, I love that they just showed that they were boys. Like I feel like, and that's why I said I want to talk about the racial bias, because I feel like so many, there's so many or what's the word I want to say? There's so many negative stereotypes about people of color, and it's just like, yo, we're basically the same issue. We're one of the same. 9 times out of 10, we're scared of the same stuff. 9 times out of 10, we want to be the same thing. Like, we're just trying to be great people. And when you got this negative cloud over this idea of me, it's kind of like it definitely get it definitely doesn't give you the chance for you to realize that I'm human too. Because I guess, like, I don't even know who this person is, like, but I've been in this situation a couple of times where, and it could be where, I'll have a client come in and you'll see me, Pepita Gonzalez. I usually go by Pita. That's my childhood nickname. That's what mostly everybody knows me as, and who I know myself as. And most of the time, one you'll hear Pepita Gonzalez, and you're expecting this Hispanic girl who speaks fluent Spanish, and then you get basically, in some people's eyes when they see me, you get this black girl with this curly hair, and you're like, what are you? And two, you're not what I thought. And I do my best to try to be down to earth, and I've always told people, like, just give me that shot, and I promise you, bro, you're gonna like me. And because I get it from all different spectrums. It's like you're and it doesn't really matter what race, because I get it from everybody. You're like, you're not what I expect. You're a Pepita, and it's like, that's what's on the birth certificate. And I just think, luckily, I've been able to use that to my advantage and just, um, make light of it, because it's always a funny conversation. It's always going to be like, I know people not going to think I am who I am. And I think that's what gives me that grace to try to have that diverse clientele, because um, I enjoy meeting anybody and everybody, and not judging them by the cover, but who they are as a person, because you never know who you never know who's going to touch your heart. Like I always think that's the funny thing. You'll never know who's going to touch your heart. So watching this story, and even though it's such a painful story, but it's so true, and I think it's a story that needed to be told, because so many times, so many people believe, like, oh, people are just trying to use the race card. The race card is not a card people want to use. Like, it's not a fun card to use. I guess for me, most of the time, if I have to use it, or if I even have to point that out, the situation, and you're like, oh, you're using the race card? No. If I'm saying, are you doing this to me because of my race? it's uncomfortable for me too. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants it. No, like nobody wants to feel like they're not a regular human being because of the color of their skin. Nobody likes it. And then another thing I saw in there was just like, I feel like a lot of people resonated with Korey's story because, like, that story alone hurt my feelings. Because he went through so much just trying to be a great friend. And I felt like he was taken advantage of. Like, I don't know if, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to use the correct words because I don't want nobody coming for me. I know he was deaf and he has a learning disability, or he had some learning hindrance. I don't know what the learning disability was or what it is, but you can tell there's some lacking. And I felt like the prosecutors and the detective took advantage of that. I think that they played on that. That they definitely didn't. I think had he been of a different color, and if you want to, have that conversation with me, that's fine. But I think if he would have been a different color, he would have been saw in a different light. Because I feel like there's so many times that children of color, they have a disability, and there's even been recent statistics on that, that they're more likely, instead of to get the problem solved, they're disciplined for behavioral issues when there's actually like some type of disability that people are just going unnoticed and untreated. And so then here you are, these bad kids, these bad ones. And I felt like that's what happened to him. And that was heartbreaking. It was so heartbreaking to me. And to see that happen, I was just like, oh my goodness. I just wanted to hug him through the screen. I cried. That fourth episode, I just cried. Because it was just like that. It was very heartbreaking. And then to see that how that went down, I was just like, oh, okay. But I love how he was still a bright light by the end of it. I even went and watched the actual interview with him that they did for his confession, and I was just like, I don't know how this was admissible. I don't know how this was taken for gold. I don't know how anyone could see that. But I do know that because of negative stereotypes, that's why a lot of times people tend to not have that empathy for people of color. They blame everything on them for their situations. And that was just like, whoa. And then I guess for me, with that being said, Linda Fairstein, not like now she's being canceled 30 years later, and she wants to be the victim. And it's just like, these children were never a victim to you. Well, now they're men. They were never victims to you. And then when the jogger came out and said, she trusts she still trusts the prosecutors and those detectives, how do you trust them when they were wrong? Like, I guess for me, like, I get you're a victim, but there's so many victims. And I guess my distrust with history is, especially since history to me isn't always taught correctly, throughout history there's so many black boys who did time, who were innocent, or who died lynched, or like for instance Emmett Till, who who were completely innocent to hurting a white woman, but it didn't matter because they needed somebody to pay for that. But I feel like to do true justice, you should make sure whoever did what they did, whoever harmed you, that person pays. And with these boys being innocent, they're owed an apology. Even though you have nothing to do with it, and doubling down with the police, that doesn't help. But I am grateful that you unsealed those the stuff that was with the case, because it comes out that the truth will always come out, and that truth comes out. I think you should ha- you should also ask them to apologize. I feel like everybody got to move on, but them. They're still trying to prove their innocence, and that's just crazy. And I wanted to end it with this story of it's actually didn't happen that long ago. I had this client, and basically it was her and her close friend. She's like, "Do you mind if I talk to her while you do my hair?" I was like, "Cool, I'm coloring your hair. I'll just put my headphones on and just work, and y'all chit chat. I don't care. Pretend I'm not here." Well, I always leave one headphone out, even if I'm listening to music while I'm doing someone's hair, for just in case they ever need me. So I'm listening to their conversations, and the girl whose hair I'm doing, I think she's like Middle Eastern, but her best friend's white, and you can tell they're very comfortable, very close. So the white girl's like, um, well, me and you know, her boyfriend just graduated. He's worried about getting a job. And she's like, he has nothing to worry about. He's blue eyes and blonde hair. He's white. He'll get a job. I'm like, oh, you know this. Matter of factly, I don't say anything. But in that moment, it proved to me, y'all know, but sometimes you just don't, because you thought, because you thought I wasn't listening, that most of the time when people speak up against things like this, people be knowing, and they use it to their advantage. But as soon as somebody speaks out against it, it's just like, what are you talking about? But I use that story to say, people do know, but I want you to do more than know, but use that knowledge to help other people out. We're all Americans. We all want to be great, and not just one people. So I hope y'all think about it, and I hope you enjoyed this first episode and sitting with me behind this mirror. And I hope you reflect on those thoughts, and I hope this sparks you to be like, yeah, you know what? She might be right, and we should help each other out, and we should try to become a better USA. So thank you for listening. And again, this is Behind the Mirror with Peta, and I hope you enjoyed. And bye bye.